Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand. Jessop's Journal is a collection of powerful, positive, and inspirational stories. It's time for Jessop's Journal.
Hi, I'm Doug Jessop. Welcome to this episode of Jessop's Journal, where we share powerful, positive, and inspirational stories in music. Now, I love the entrepreneurial spirit, so today we're going to tell some success stories. First up is a gentleman that started helping kids, and it ended up being a global impact company.
I started the company almost 21 years ago now.
Okay.
After my dad developed the nasal spray, and he developed it to prevent ear infections in infants.
This week's musical guests, Red Dirt Girls, tell a story about separating the wheat from the tares in their song, The Good Pieces.
Pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, pieces from the way back when. Pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, put it back together again.
Brandon Fugal went from digging ditches to now helping build the business landscape as you see it today and tomorrow.
I have the privilege of representing hundreds of high-profile projects across the entire Wasatch Front. In fact, I think I have projects in 25 municipalities right now. So we know that no matter what happens with the economy, at least I'm making the sign companies rich.
That is true. Oh, by the way, Brandon Fugal shares one of his prized possessions in this week's Treasures Remembered.
Here we have a 1611 first printing of the King James Bible. This is a very unique copy, one of the most rare in existence. Why? It really has only had two owners. The parish church outside of Cambridge, England, that took delivery in 1611, and myself.
But first, Nate Jones. Nate, it's time to sign into Jessop's Journal. Nate, thanks for coming on.
Anytime.
You know, you've thought about washing your hands, but the question is, have you thought about washing your nose?
Well, of course I have.
You have, but it's because you're in a slightly different mode.
I do. I have for 20 years.
Tell me, what is the connection? I mean, what have you been using to wash your nose?
The Clear product.
Okay, surprise, surprise.
Surprise.
Tell people why that shouldn't be a surprise.
Because I started the company almost 21 years ago now.
Okay.
After my dad developed the nasal spray, and he developed it to prevent ear infections in infants.
Really?
He was a family physician, and he read all these studies about how xylitol blocks bacterial adhesion of the common pathogens, strep pneumo, H flu, MCAT, staph, and he had babies that were having ear infections, and typically what they do is they just give them antibiotics.
Right.
And even when I was growing up, my dad understood that antibiotics have a lot of bad side effects. They mess with your gut microbiome, they mess with you a lot.
Right.
And so he wanted to find something else, and he was dating a woman that he's now been married to for 20 years, but he was dating a woman who was a special ed teacher. And one of the things that she has commented on many times is her granddaughter, whose name was Heather, but her granddaughter was 6 months old and having these recurrent ear infections. And she told my dad, she goes, you need to find something to do it, because one thing that I know is every student that I've had through my career has had chronic ear infections and tubes put in their ears.
Really?
Because what happens, and this goes on to a completely different tangent, is if you get fluid buildup in your ears, there's a very small window where kids really learn languages.
Yeah.
And if you have fluid in your ears, you're not going to be able to learn those languages as effectively as if you don't have the fluid, as if you're healthy. And so she was really, I don't want to say pissed off, but she was frustrated because her granddaughter was now going to go have tubes and start going down that pathway. And so she just told my dad, and my dad went on this new thing called the internet back in the 90s.
A couple years ago,
I don't know if it's going to stick around or anything.
Well,
But he went on the internet on this new webpage called PubMed, and it's the first time in history where the medical studies that doctors read and the dental studies were all collated together. And he was querying, prevent ear infections and stuff like that. And what kept coming up were dental research studies because they've been using xylitol in dental practice and researching it since 1969. Because they've known since 1969 that it helps prevent tooth decay. It helps get rid of the bacteria in your mouth that cause cavities. So, and when they're doing these studies, they collect all this other data. And so in the footnotes of all these studies, it was, the people using the xylitol gum were also getting 42% fewer ear infections, upper respiratory infections. But that was as far as they took it, because they're dentists. They don't care what goes on the nose. They're just dentists. They just collect the data. And so my dad, he goes, well, they're little babies. They can't chew gum. Ear infections start in the nose. So he put into a saline spray and started washing their nose out, and they stopped getting sick.
Really? Okay, and without sounding stupid, how do you spell xylitol?
You spell xylitol Xylitol.
Thus the name Clear with the X.
Yes, the name Clear is because it clears your nose, and that's what the company started with, was with the Clear nasal spray. It clears your nose, and the X is, for the xylitol.
How long ago was that?
We officially started as a company in June of 2000.
I've known you for a number of years, and you do some crazy stuff that you just say, yeah, whatever, okay. You're the only person that I know that has ever put on a dive suit and decided to go jump in the ocean and go weld on, what was it, oil derrick or something like that?
We worked on oil rigs, oil pipelines. We did work down at Lake Powell, salvaging houseboats, salvaging an airplane out of Utah Lake. Beach Bottom Atomic Power Station.
Why in the world would you go into a nuclear power plant?
Because they had to go in and do some maintenance work on it.
And it's still running, or what?
No. They shut it down.
Yeah.
But you have to let it cool. And so we were actually diving. I mean, it wasn't really diving because you were only in 10 feet of water.
Yeah, but still.
But it's around the reactor you have, it's called a torus, and it's full of water. And if the thing melts, goes meltdown, then it floods it and cools it down.
Okay.
And so we were diving, but the water, they let it cool down to 140 degrees. And so we were diving, and we had ice blocks on our back and our front and around our legs. And then you jump in, and you'd have to get back out every, hour to get new ice blocks.
Wow. How in the world did you get into that?
Because I decided that I didn't really want to become a doctor.
Okay, so your dad was a doctor.
Yes.
Son says, yeah, no, not for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was trying to find something else to do.
And you just decided one day you're going to be a diver?
Well, I joined the Army. Didn't like that very much. I don't like people telling me what to do all the time.
Okay, yeah, well, I got it.
I in the Guard, I actually really enjoyed being in the National Guard. I was in the National Guard out here at Camp Williams for 10 years, over 10 years, until I moved to Louisiana. But I don't know. I wanted something that I am a risk taker. I do enjoy things like that. I've parachute. But I was looking for something that was exciting.
Okay, so you've done the diving. So it sounds like you've jumped out of a plane.
Yeah.
You've also been a pilot. So
I am a pilot.
You are a pilot, okay. How did you get into being a pilot?
My stepdad was a pilot, and it's I've always thought about it, and finally I just went out and got a pilot's license and fly.
Okay, is there any interesting stories you can tell me about being a pilot?
About being a pilot, or about dumb things I've done as a pilot?
Probably a little bit of both, huh?
I've run out of gas in Texas. I have.
Well, you're in the air.
Yeah.
Okay, without sounding stupid, what happens when you run out of gas in an airplane when you're in the air?
Well, if you're a good pilot, you don't run out of gas. If you're an okay pilot that has great landing skills, then you glide down, come through the cloud deck, and land on a dirt road.
Okay. And I take it that really happened?
That happened, yeah.
Okay, wow. Okay. What other crazy things has Nate Jones done?
What's your definition of crazy?
Well, something that I probably wouldn't do. I'd probably just do just about everything.
I flew a MiG in Australia.
Whoa, okay, you got to tell me about that.
I just went out and had a guy, you give him some money, and they take you up and let you go fly in a MiG. And it was actually probably the best 45 minutes of my life, because it is a completely different experience than flying a regular airplane. Because he takes off and he's flying, and he just cruises 500 feet off the water, and then he goes, and he shoots straight up, and you're like,
yeah. Were you in a G suit or anything? Or?
No. They had a little compression suit, but he flies up and does a couple barrel rolls and a couple loops, and he goes, "You're a pilot. It's your stick," and you just start, and it is the responsiveness of of those fighter aircrafts is amazing.
Nate Jones, how do you want to leave your mark?
I always want to be part of the solution.
That's it. Final words. You've been the shortest answer I've ever had, but it's good. Part of the solution. Everyone has a story. Sometimes those stories are told through music. It's time for Jessop's Jukebox. This week's musical guest, Red Dirt Girls. Life is never boring. It's sometimes kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. It goes all over the place, and sometimes you got to try to put it together. But sometimes, suggestion, you need to pick the good pieces.
1, 2, 3, 4. Papa's on the front steps, living with his regrets. Mama loves the man next door. Sister's got big dreams, packing up her blue jeans. Brother threw the Christus on the floor. It was high on the mantle, lit like a candle. He could have just put it in the drawer, but he didn't want to see it, couldn't believe it. So he threw the Christus on the floor. Pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, pieces from the way back when. Pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, pick up the good pieces, put it back together again. Bibles and divorces, not gonna sell the horses. Don't need a man to be strong. Alpha and Omega's the only thing to save you. So brother, you've got it wrong. The words are strict and they may contradict, make you feel like you don't belong. In the house of the Lord, take a minor chord and sing your sad song. Or pick out the good pieces, pick out the good pieces, pick out the good pieces, pieces from the way back when. Pick out the good pieces, pick out the good pieces, pick out the good pieces, put it back together again. When my days are done, into thy kingdom come. When you look back on my life, forgive the darkness and see the light. I look for the good pieces, good pieces, look for the good pieces, pieces from the way back when. Look for the good pieces, good pieces, look for the good pieces, put me back together again. Papa's on the front steps, living with his regrets. Mama loves the man next door. Sister's got big dreams, packing up her blue jeans. Brother threw the Christus on the floor.
All of my hats have a story. Well, this hat's special because it's based on my great-grandfather's hat. His name was Frederick Emo Youngquist. Thus, the name of this hat, the Youngquist. Brandon Fugal is what I call the keeper of the business crystal ball. Well, we take a sneak peek into what he sees. Brandon, thanks for coming on.
It's good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
If you're in Utah, people know your name. Now, they may not remember where the heck they've seen your name, but it's like freaking everywhere because you're on billboards and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Why? Explain to somebody that's not from Utah, why in the world that your name's all over the place?
I have the privilege of representing hundreds of high-profile projects across the entire Wasatch Front. In fact, I think I have projects in 25 municipalities right now. So we know that no matter what happens with the economy, at least I'm making the sign companies rich.
That is true. So yeah, your hand is kind of like in real estate all over the place.
Yeah.
And obviously you didn't just wake up one day and say, geez, I'm going to be the real estate mogul of Utah. So where did you grow up?
Yeah, Pleasant Grove, Utah, where I've lived almost my entire life with the exception of 2 years in Hawaii, of all places.
Okay.
I still reside in Pleasant Grove and intend to die there, essentially.
Do you have a house in Hawaii?
No. I have property in Hawaii.
Okay, well, there you go. I knew you had
a development project in Hawaii.
There's a part of me that just wonders, little Brandon Fugal back in the day. Were you carrying a briefcase back then, or what?
Even though I watched Family Ties with a young, Michael J. Fox, I grew up, in small town USA in Pleasant Grove, Utah, and at first you wouldn't think that I would be drawn to business from a young age, but at age 13, my father received a book on Father's Day called Iacocca, which was the great autobiography of the automotive icon Lee Iacocca. I picked that book up that weekend and out of curiosity started reading it, and I ended up reading it cover to cover, and it changed my whole worldview as a junior high schooler. And by the time I was a junior and senior in high school, I had my own subscriptions to the Wall Street Journal and Business Week, and was just obsessed with business. And really, who were the players? Who were the main influencers, entrepreneurs, the people that really change our world? And I found from a young age, as I was entering the tail end of my senior year in high school, that commercial real estate was an ideal career path that would afford me the opportunity to work with the captains of industry, the entrepreneurs, the people that I was reading about that were gracing the covers of these periodicals. And at age 18, 1 week out of high school, I jumped into commercial real estate with a focus on office brokerage and corporate requirements that have carried me through to this day.
18.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I jumped in at a very young age.
So this begs the question, and usually I say babysitting doesn't count, but what was your first paying job?
Boy, first paying job was either washing glassware in a laboratory at BYU, and I got a part-time job washing these baubles, these glassware instruments that were used in a laboratory, or really my most notable first real paying job was in construction, digging ditches.
Really?
So my entire teenage existence was involving working out on construction crews.
There you go.
In fact, at age 15, I was put out on a crew digging ditches, putting in telephone lines and later gas lines, and it taught me the value of hard work and working with a diversity of personalities and being able to really, I think develop an ethic that has carried me through to this day.
I see these buildings that basically have got, your thumbprint on them.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I wonder if those guys working on the buildings realize that you used to do kind of what they used to do.
Probably not. I
Yeah.
think we all take for granted, and don't realize, that everyone starts from small beginnings. I mean, everyone, every great business started in someone's garage or basement or on the back of a napkin.
Going back in time, Do you remember one of those early deals that you did where you helped an entrepreneur, a person that had an idea that went from a garage to saying, I now need to get into a commercial building. I need to make this thing work?
You bet. Numerous examples. Countless experiences that I've had working with entrepreneurs, with visionaries that were literally starting off in their garage or in a scrappy little office.
Give me a couple examples.
You know, there's a company called Ancestry. You know, I was contacted back in the late 90s and by the operating executive with the company called Ancestry, and he said, you know, we publish a periodical for genealogists all over the world, and we're looking to establish an online web presence that is really going to propel our business to the next level. And you know, we just have a handful of us in the old WordPerfect publishing space behind the Orem Post Office, but we anticipate, you know, experiencing growth in the future, and we need some help with that. Would you be willing to sit down with us and help us kind of with our growth strategy as we look at taking the leap from 2,000 square feet to needing larger space? And so,
yeah,
you know,
they're in a couple more feet now. How many square feet do you think they're in now?
Well, their headquarters that I put them in, you know, just a couple of years ago, is 200,000 square feet.
Okay, let's see it.
In Lehi, Utah. But it was funny, you know, working with them and seeing their growth from 2,000 square feet to hundreds of thousands of square feet, and really being one of the, I think, most successful online enterprises and websites in history has been really gratifying.
I've done stories where you say, okay, you know, the little company, then you, and that is such a rush to be able to say, you know, I knew those guys back then. And for you to be able to say, yeah, I helped these guys, boom, 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 and to see that payout, that has got to be ultra gratifying.
Well, to be able to help build community and to have your fingerprints on the literal skyline is a great privilege, and it's something that has driven me since I was a teenager.
Brandon Fugal, how do you want to leave your mark?
Market domination. That has been my goal since I was 18. If we were to get into a time machine and travel back to 1991, to my 18-year-old self, jumping into the commercial real estate business, and we were to ask me, what is your goal? What is your primary objective? I would have told you back then, total market domination. And it continues to drive me.
I think you're doing a pretty good job at that.
Well, you're only as good as your next deal.
That is true.
And,
that is very true.
Yeah, the one thing I've been able to do effectively is psych myself out every day to really feel a sense of urgency that you know, I'm perpetually unemployed. And with every project completed, you're essentially unemployed and needing to go out and fill the pipeline, if you will.
Well, I'm glad I'm on your Rolodex, so thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
You see me every Sunday in the ABC4 News at 10 p.m. with a positive news feature called Utah Success Stories. A lot of my news stories are a combination of dirty jobs and how it's made. If you're a business owner with an interesting story to tell, put me to work. Now, these stories aren't for everybody. It's got to be a good fit for both sides. Full disclosure, we do charge a fee to cover production costs and social media exposure. For more information, email me at doug@dougjessup.com. Utah Success Stories. It's always a pleasure when Brandon Fugal opens up his vault of rare books and memorabilia. Objects with stories are treasures remembered. Brandon Fugal, what do we have here?
Here we have a 1611 first printing of the King James Bible. This is a very unique copy, one of the most rare in existence. Why? It really has only had two owners. The parish church outside of Cambridge, England, that took delivery in 1611, and myself. It made its way to me in September of 2019 as it was auctioned for the purpose of making repairs to the ancient 1200 AD structure where it resided for hundreds of years. Inside the cover, you have the inscription AD 1611, Bible belonging to the Parish Church, Melbourne. Some of the most striking portions are found in the genealogies of the Holy Scriptures that was commissioned by King James specifically for this first printing that literally changed history. Here you have God, Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden depicted, as well as a whole line of genealogies that really open this very special ancient scripture. The first batch that were being printed, which we know for a fact that this was one of the very first to come off of the press, had an error in the book of Ruth, where they called Ruth a he, not a she. Upon finding the error, the printers had to reset the type for that whole page and then commence the work of the rest of the printing. This is one of the great he Bibles of the 1611 first printing, making this even more rare. So not only does this have an unbroken provenance or chain of title directly to me from the date of its printing, but this is also one of the very rare he Bible versions.
Successful entrepreneurs work hard, but they also play hard. So don't forget to take a deep breath. Join me, come on, you know you want to. Clear nasal spray helps me. I think it'll help you too. Take a deep breath and relax. Thanks for watching this episode of Jessop's Journal. It's my honor to share powerful, positive, and inspirational stories and music right here on TV every week and worldwide at jessopsjournal.com. Everyone has a story. Yes, you have a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. With another entry into Jessop's Journal, I'm Doug Jessop.
Papa's on the front steps, living with his regrets. Mama loves the man next door. Sister's got big dreams, packing up her blue jeans. Brother threw the Christus on the floor. It was high on the mantle, lit like a candle. He could have just put it in the drawer, but he didn't want to see it, couldn't believe it, so he threw the Christus on the floor.